Hi everyone, just waiting for Hannah to join and we'll get started. Just invite Hannah again. And we'll get started shortly, hopefully. Hiya Hannah.
Hello.
You ready?
Yeah.
So if you just start with a bit about you, where you come from, a little bit about you and your background. Yeah, just also about your masters in law, really.
Oh, sorry, it's completely frozen. I didn't hear any of
Oh
that.
god. We'll just start again then. So if you just start off with a bit about you, where you come from, a bit about you and your background, and your masters in law, really.
Okay, cool. So I'm Hannah. My background, I did an undergraduate degree in healthcare management, with the aspiration of becoming a doctor afterwards, but sort of wanted the uni lifestyle and to be a bit less serious first. And then in my last year of my undergraduate degree, I was falsely accused of domestic violence, and I had a place at medical school to do postgrad medicine, which was taken away from me at that point. I could have reapplied, but I chose not to. It's quite an expensive and arduous process. So instead, I picked something different to do. And given that the law wasn't really working for me and I saw all the kind of problems involved in it, I did a master's in law, which I've just finished in June, and have set up a charity with my co-founder Leah, and that's sort of where we are now.
Yeah, perfect. Can you tell us a bit more about the charity? Obviously, we touched on why you decided to set it up and almost why it's so important to you, but could you tell us a bit more about what sort of work you do?
Yeah, so the charity's called The Defendant, and we set it up because both Liam and I were falsely accused, and there were many places within the system that we felt it was lacking. And one of the main ones was support for defendants. And so we had many conversations about this and thought that the main area that we could have done with in really was emotional support, and to be given help with like understanding all the terms that police and solicitors etc use, which we weren't given. So our charity, we have a website which we've just launched, which should provide basic information about the legal processes. It's not legal advice, but it should define key terms so you understand sort of where you're going next in the system and what might happen and what XYZ means. And the second part of it is we have a helpline launching in March, which should provide emotional support to defendants.
Yeah,
and defence witnesses.
Yeah, definitely. So on your website, I feel like we might have just touched on this one. On your website, it states that there is a lot of information that people accused of crimes don't know and need to know. I expect that we've almost elaborated on that, and almost talking about your personal circumstances. So you provide advice to defendants across the board, irrespective of the crimes that perhaps they may or may not have convicted. How do you balance helping people that may have committed more serious crimes, though?
So we at no point are about guilt. It is entirely irrelevant to us if someone is guilty or not. We are of the belief that anyone, doesn't matter what you've done, serious crime you've committed or been accused of committing, you still deserve to understand the process, to know the process, and to have mental health support. So guilt doesn't really play a part in it for us.
Yeah, definitely.
I personally don't, it doesn't bother me at all. I'm happy to provide support to anyone who needs it, guilty or otherwise.
Yeah, definitely. So almost leading on from that, I guess, like, do you think that the police should be providing more support to defendants until they actually are found guilty, rather than almost having those preconceptions about them?
So I don't think it's the police's jurisdiction to provide support in terms of being, a shoulder to cry on or someone to talk to about the process. What I do think they should be providing is, I think they should be upholding the principle of innocent until proven guilty, which currently I think a lot of forces aren't doing. And I know that I did and Liam did, felt guilty until proven otherwise. So that I think they should be upholding. I think they should be providing support in terms of helping you understand what they mean when they say certain things. So what being released under investigation means, as opposed to just saying it and leaving you to it as though what's going on. And I also think they should be providing support. At the moment, defenders have no right to an update on the investigation, which obviously creates a lot of anxiety and stuff. And I think that needs to change, and that they need to provide support in that area so that they don't just feel left in limbo.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine that, obviously never being in that position myself, but as you have, it's all quite a lot at the time, and especially if it's a wrongful conviction, you say, like being accused especially. Almost going back to Liam, really. So Liam is also the co-founder of this charity. I just want to touch on a few case facts briefly, if that's all right, since it did receive national coverage at the time. So Liam was falsely accused by an ex-girlfriend of multiple rape and sexual assault charges during his bachelor's in criminology and criminal psychology. Having struggled mentally whilst on bail, Liam was eventually charged and his case went to trial. However, during the third day of his trial, it was revealed that 60,000 text messages had been downloaded from his accuser's phone and had not been disclosed by the officer in charge, with a large portion of those messages proving his innocence. And more so in your case, you were quizzed by police several times over false accusations and waited more than a year to learn that you were finally cleared despite being totally innocent. I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions on what you went through, really. So mentally, how did you cope, and what broke you the most, really?
So I think I was lucky in a lot of ways, in that there was no miscarriage of justice. That the police did their due diligence, they did their investigation. But it shouldn't take a year to do something that was quite clear cut. And I was lucky that I had good support. I had great friends, I had great family. One of my friends, I rang her in the middle of the night. She drove 60 miles in the middle of the night because I didn't want to be on my own. So I had that great support network. If I hadn't had it, the situation would be very different. But I think it's the not knowing. I didn't want to plan anything more than a month in advance because I didn't know, if I was going to spend the next 7 years in prison. So I didn't want to apply to do my master's in law because I thought, what's the point if I'm going to be in prison? I didn't do anything social. I sort of lost a lot of the last 6 months of uni because I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to plan anything because I was of the mindset, like, what's the point? If I'm in prison, it doesn't matter. It's all irrelevant. Everything is irrelevant. So my degree wasn't as good as it should have been during the sort of most crucial months of my degree. I sort of stopped caring. So I think that was the most disheartening bit, where I did begin to feel just sort of like, what's the point of being here at all, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely, because obviously you know that even in the time and looking back, like, you can never go back and get that time back, really. Especially, and quite a daunting thought, you say, like, thinking, oh, it's not going to matter because I could be going to prison and it's not where I should be. So do you feel that after going through the system itself, that almost like the criminal justice system is broken in some sort of way?
So our criminal justice system is supposed to be the envy of the world and blah, blah, blah. And I think on paper it's great. But each force can apply the law in their way. So there's a lot of discrepancies. You could be found guilty in one force, but if, another police had investigated it, it might not have been sent to the CPS to be charged. And that's obviously not how the system should work. And on paper, it's not how it does work, but in practice, it is. So I think it is broken, but the policies and everything that underpin the criminal justice system would suggest that it isn't, and it is working well. But it's just not how it works. We speak to people every day who say, you know, the evidence has been hidden, or they haven't investigated one line of inquiry, you know, and they're going to end up in prison for things that are just absolutely bizarre, and any rational and reasonable person would understand that that was not the right thing, you know.
Yeah, it almost seems like there's sometimes like a loss of like humanity in the criminal justice system. Like,
I think that's the thing with cases every day, and you know, a large portion of them are, you know, they are guilty. Time it gets to trial, you'd have hoped that they'd have filtered most of the not guilty people out. So I guess when you're dealing with that every day, you lose the human perspective and the compassion to it.
Yeah, definitely. Would you say that, obviously, once again, as you've gone through the system yourself, would you say that you are able to trust the system again at all?
It's difficult. I'd like to believe I could, but I think I was also the victim of a serious crime. I fight and I woke up on life support, and the police, we went to the police obviously, and they said there's nothing we can do. There was no CCTV. So I think, you know, I've been on both ends of it, and both times sort of justice hasn't been done in the right way. So yeah, no, I don't think I do trust them. I'd be very reluctant to go to the police about anything.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't blame you with that at all. And almost, how do you feel about the almost entire process as a whole, and whether lessons learned will make a difference, really?
I think the process is the correct process to be happening. And I think jury trials are a great thing, even though there's discussion about cutting them, which I think is ridiculous. Yeah. But I think... Sorry, what was the second part of that question?
And whether the lessons learned will make a difference, really?
No, I don't think they will. When Liam's case came out, they said they do all current rape cases, which they did, and hundreds were dropped as a result. But nothing appears to have changed. No policies have changed as a result of that. And although in that moment cases were dropped and disclosure was looked at, as time has gone on, that has sort of fallen off the radar again.
Yeah.
I think they want to be seen to be learning, but I don't think they do. Officers aren't held to account. I think that's the problem. They only ever seem to, you know, get a pat on the back. So
yeah, definitely. It's almost just gone back to how it was before, and
exactly.
Everything's been overturned. Do you have any, almost feeding on from that again, do you have any particular recommendations which, as you have been through the system yourself, and obviously through no fault of your own, that you'd like to see being implemented into the criminal justice system, perhaps?
I think, well, firstly, I think the most important thing is that defendants should have a right to an update on where their case is at. No, I went 9 months without knowing anything, and it's really difficult to know how to proceed with your life when you know literally nothing. You don't know who they're contacting, what lines of inquiry they're going after. So that is really difficult, and I think that is vital, that is implemented. And although it is already, you know, supposed to underpin our justice system, innocence until proven guilty, that I think needs to be the forefront of every investigation, which currently it isn't. So if those two things were implemented, you know, you can't stop someone making an allegation, and the police obviously have to investigate every allegation, as they should. But it's just making sure that both parties in that process feel respected, and that there's no bias, and that justice is done.
Yeah, massively, definitely. Almost, well, actually kind of unrelated. Do you think that technology is almost helping the criminal justice system, or would you say that it is making it harder for defendants to prove their innocence, really?
So I think a bit of both. Technology should really help investigations, because everyone's lives, you know, your whole life is on your phone. Everything you've done, like, you know, tracks exactly where you are, what money you've spent, you know, who you're with, all photos, texts, XYZ. So in theory, it should help prove whatever they're trying to prove very quickly. But the difficulty comes with privacy and the complainant's right to privacy and the defendant's right to privacy. Not that anyone cares about the defendant's right to privacy, but the police will only look into a complainant's phone, one, if they give consent, and two, if they feel it's relevant to the investigation. And deciding what's relevant when you've got masses of information means that a lot of stuff is missed, like Liam's texts that proved his innocence. So I think it should help, but there's very blurry lines about what you can use as evidence and what to look at and what to disclose in terms of respecting the complainant.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, in Liam's case, obviously that had a massive impact on it, and I'm sure for hundreds and thousands of others it's had a similar impact on. So obviously when you were going through the criminal justice system, in your case, you obviously came into contact and dealt with many legal advisors during all the proceedings and that. More so on like the legal advisors themselves, do you think, would you be able to tell us what you found was more like good about them and what perhaps was missing and what they could have done better, really?
So I think my legal team generally were very good. They were good at doing what they had to do, which was get the police to answer questions, to answer what they were doing, and to obviously eventually drop the case and provide the evidence to them in the way that I probably wouldn't have been able to do because I was in a panic, where they were able to make it, comprehensive. But it is impossible to get hold of a legal professional if they don't want to speak to you. So I did find myself ringing, many times, emailing without getting a response because they think, I don't have anything to tell you. So, I can't, there's no point answering because there's no update kind of thing. And they don't have time to answer questions that you might have about how long this could be, and they don't know either. So I think good in the sense that they've got the knowledge, they've got the skills, but I think the lack of compassion maybe and humanity, I think once you've dealt with a lot of people, it's hard to put yourself in their shoes and to sort of understand the frustration need for someone to update you and to give you something when nobody's giving you anything. But then again, it's not a lawyer's job to educate you and, provide that emotional support. So they were great at what they were doing. I needed someone else, I guess, to do what they don't have the time and are not paid to do, but I was sort of expecting from them.
Yeah, I can imagine. And that's almost where you come in to almost fill that and actually provide what's missing of them, really, in the work that you do. So do you think that maybe law students currently, or like future law students, and perhaps trainee solicitors and barristers, they need more to almost fill that gap, I guess? They need more specific training and need to develop skills that obviously help with their clients' mental health concerns, because obviously in those times mental health is going to be a massive sufferer.
I don't think it's training so much as time. Particularly if you're a legal aid solicitor, you're not paid for a lot of the work you do. So a lot of it's time and putting yourself in their shoes, which I guess as a newly qualified student and solicitor or a law student, when you haven't dealt with so many cases, you might sort of feel that need to fill that emotional kind of void. But as you get more experienced and you've experienced with more people, it's more like, this is what needs to be done for this case. This is what I'm going to do with the police and the court and XYZ. And that's sort of it. So I don't think maybe it is training. Maybe I think they just need to be reminded that these are people and their life is at risk. And to just bear that in mind always when people contact you in a panic, it's because they fear that they'll lose their liberty, not that they're trying to be annoying.
Yeah, definitely. And I can imagine, like, at that time you almost felt that contacting and reaching out to legal advice and that you almost felt as though, due to like maybe like the lack of responses and that you perhaps like a burden on them, perhaps, I can imagine.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want them to feel irritated because you need them to be on your side. So to irritate them, but when you can't contact the police yourself, and they are not responding either, it's difficult because there is no one to go to, and you have family and friends, but you know, none of my family knew anything about the law. And the common line was, you know, you haven't done anything, so I don't know why you're worried. But
Yeah, definitely.
It's irrelevant, because even though I know I haven't done anything, if the jury decide I've done something, then, you know, I've lost my life. So you
Yeah.
say irrelevant.
Yeah, I can imagine, because obviously at the end of the day, even though you know what's true, it's over to the hands of other people in the public, really. More so just about the charity then, how can people get in touch with the charity? Is it provided nationally, all your support? Do you have phone, email, video calls perhaps at this time?
Yeah, so it's provided in the UK and Wales. Emotional support is provided in Scotland and Ireland as well, but currently we don't. The Scottish system and the Northern Ireland system is different in terms of legal processing. So we haven't got there yet. We do plan to, but it's not. We don't know about that yet, basically. But in terms of emotional support and advice, just general advice, we have an email address, which is info@thedefendant.org.uk, which a lot of people contact us on. We do also have a phone number, and our helpline will be coming in March, which will be nationally as well, and we'll be able to provide support to a lot more people, because at the moment our phone is 1 million.
Yeah.
So it limits the amount of people we can help.
Yeah, definitely. And just any other comments or anything? How long has the Defendant been a charity for, really?
So we started in July, but we've been an official charity since December. Mm-hmm. It's been a sort of long process in the making, really. We knew there was a gap, but finding that what can fill that gap was going to be most appropriate to defendants was quite difficult, because everyone has their own sort of what went wrong with their case, and felt that. So to merge all those together was quite difficult. But yeah, so we've really been going since July, and we have a lot of people contacting us every day, and I think so far, you know, we're quite new, we're not fully up and running, but I think we're making an impact, and we've helped a few people, so that's what we're about, really.
Yeah, definitely. Almost like we went back to before, about filling the gap that is missing and is ultimately very damaging to people that are going through that. Would you say there's more like specific topics which keep coming up that people are coming to you for, perhaps like similar cases such as the ones that you went through or that Liam went through about rape and that?
So we get a lot of people coming to us with disclosure failures, so like Liam's case, and the majority of people are sexual offence cases. But I guess that's because a lot of the evidence is he said, she said. There's no hard evidence. You know, she makes a complaint, say no, and that's all there is to it. And there's a lot of society bias, obviously, surrounding rape. So although it shouldn't be there, I think when you go to a jury, that's already in their mind that, you know, that was a serious crime. Yeah. If we find any reason why this person might be guilty, we need to convict them, kind of thing. That's what we get most often, with people with sexual offences and it not being investigated thoroughly enough.
Yeah. So do you work like alongside while the case is proceeding, and then just wait until verdict, really, or?
So yeah, we are pre-conviction, but we get a lot of people contacting us after a loved one has been convicted.
Yeah.
Just for someone to listen to them, I guess, and how difficult it can be. But generally, we aim to be with people as like a listening ear from allegation to trial, and we've been doing quite a lot of that recently, just to provide that sort of continuous support, I guess. Yeah,
I can imagine. I don't have any more questions myself. I don't know if anyone who's watching have any questions, if they'd like to drop them in the chat at all.
Mm.
Don't know if there's anything else to cover, really.
I think that was pretty comprehensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say that, actually, I just have one more like demographics wise, like, would you say you have like a specific, like, maybe like gender, which is more prominent that come to you, like age range, really?
Age range, I don't know. We don't ask about age, but generally we have males contacting us. It does seem to be men more specifically, and that goes with the sexual offences and rape.
Yeah, definitely.
Charged with rape, she can be charged with sexual offences, but not with rape. So, yeah, it is generally men. Yeah, their age I don't know.
Yeah.
But I've seen this happen quite dramatically recently because of the amount of people contacting us. So, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Not sure if there's anything else to ask.
Cool. Thank you so much for your time.
And you, of course, it was lovely to meet you.
And you.
And you, thank you.
Bye.